huge few weeks in front of us. A lot of decisions to be made. James Harden averaged just 22 points a game this past season. He has a player option worth over $47 million. What will happen in Philly? Andrew Wiggins, fresh off a championship, an all-star season, a critical role that he played in the NBA Finals. Plus, Jordan Poole has a $3.9 million team option. He could get $100 million. And then there's Kyrie Irving. That one's right around the corner. He has till a week from today to pick up his $36.5 million player option to stay with the Nets. I will repeat again, if he declines the option, he could become an unrestricted free agent. And so Tim Legler and Bobby Mark's been with us all morning long, and Jay Will comes across the hall now from KJM. We always appreciate it. Let's just start right there. Should the Nets be giving Kyrie Irving right now the max? He wants the super max, and that's how much is the super max for him? It's
$248 million.
200. It's just a mere $248 million. Are we good with that? If you're Joe Tsai and Sean Marks, are you putting that on the table?
I think there actually needs to be some stipulations in that contract to a degree. But I will say at the end of the day,
what are stipulations?
Well, I mean, we talked about this on my show, Bob.
Games
amount
played?
Of games played, things of that sort.
If you're Kyrie, are you signing that?
I don't know how you factor into injuries on something like that.
That's what I mean.
Injuries are part of the game, so I would probably deny that. But at the end of the day, are you willing to lose Kevin Durant? Is the question that the Nets have to ask themselves. Are you willing to rebuild and be left with Ben Simmons in the cupboard to start your franchise over again and picks? Because these two are as thick as thieves, man. I've been saying it for a while. They look at each other not only as brothers, but as equals. It's not a LeBron James, Kyrie thing where he's referring to him as a kid. It's not a KD, Stephen Curry thing where whose team is it really, even though KD got multiple finals MVPs. That's Steph's team. That's LeBron's team. At the end of the day, it's their team. So if you're willing to lose Kevin Durant, then go ahead.
So that answers the question I was going to ask you next, but I feel like I still want to dive more deeply into it. Whatever it is that happened this past year, and it was an unimaginable disaster in every way that something could be, it has not diminished that bond. KD is still as 100% supportive of going forward with Kyrie as equals as he has ever been.
It's not only the bond, in my opinion, Greeny. It's also the fact that it's these two against the world. I said that when they formed their relationship the first time. I'm like, it's going to be Kyrie and KD against everybody. So all the stuff that occurred this year, did you hear KD publicly speak on any of it? No.
Only positively, only supportively.
He had Kyrie's back.
Yeah, he did.
So there's nothing that would lead me to the conclusion, after seeing a repeated history of him having his back, that he wouldn't have his back now when he needed it the most.
So, Tim Legler, let me bring you in. I mean, how does that impact everything? Because, we were talking here. Bobby came up with the idea, give him a 4-year contract. The first 2 are guaranteed. The next 2 are not, based upon the number of games that he plays. Is Kyrie going to be willing to do that? Who knows? The Durant factor in all of this, Timmy Legs, how does that factor into all of this?
Well, yeah, and listen, Jay's 100% right. That should factor into a great deal. And obviously, Kyrie Irving's talent dictates that he's worth that kind of money when he's at his best. I just think the stipulations have to be there. And for me, if he were to opt out and I were another team looking at Kyrie Irving, talking about giving a guy a supermax, I'd have a problem sleeping at night if I was a front office executive making that kind of decision and guaranteeing that kind of money to somebody that has been unavailable for more games than he has been available since he got to Brooklyn. In fact, he has played basically the same number of playoff games, period, since he left Cleveland as he did in their one championship run. So there are a lot of things there that would make you be wary of giving him that kind of money. But I think the best point you make about why they would is because of what Jay just said. They're tied to this. They're married to this. Obviously, Harden left, so it doesn't look like it did in the beginning. But these two guys still believe they've got enough talent, depending on what this roster construction around them is going to look like, to make a serious run. And that's what you're going to be left with. Kevin Durant looking around saying, is this really what I want to be a part of if James Harden and Kyrie Irving are both not there anymore?
All right, Bobby. So now what?
This is different than James Harden. This is different what happened at the trade deadline when they went to Kevin Durant and they said, this is what, James Harden doesn't want to be here. We can get you Ben Simmons. You're not going to Kevin Durant and saying, you know what, we can't work out a deal for Kyrie Irving. He's going to go elsewhere. Are you okay with it? And of course, what Durant's going to say is, no, I'm not okay with it. Who's that other player to come play with? And we can talk about contracts with, games played. But at the end of the day, if Kevin Durant wants Kyrie Irving on this roster for 4 years at $192 million, fully guaranteed, It's up to ownership now to decide, do I want to do that and make that commitment? And if not, here are the consequences as far as what is going to happen. And the consequences is likely that Kevin Durant will ask to be traded.
So let's live in a world where this all does stay together. One way or another, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and Ben Simmons actually get to play together next year. What is that team in the Eastern Conference, Jay Will?
I mean, they're one of the favorites to win the whole damn thing.
They are actually at Caesars. They are tied with the Celtics.
And Green, by the way, and Legs, I would love to hear your opinion on this. Ben Simmons increases the pace of how this team actually should play, right? The game becomes faster. What he brings to you on the defensive end is different. And another piece that I'm sure a lot of people are overlooking, Joe Harris coming back also now gives you shooting on the perimeter, gives you another tough-nosed defender. With their bench, and there's still questions around Bruce Brown and some other pieces, obviously, but with that core, I like my odds in the Eastern Conference.
Tim Legler, is that a championship team that we're talking about, we're putting together? You see the title favorites. The Nets are second. They're tied with the Celtics as the best odds in the East, and they are just behind the defending champion Golden State Warriors. I get it. I understand it. Tim Legler, what are they? What do you think?
I think they get thrown right into that category with Milwaukee, with Boston, with Miami. They're absolutely on the short list of teams that could come out of the Eastern Conference. I agree with what Jay said about Ben Simmons. Look, we've got to see him because who knows right now what Ben Simmons is going to look like. How is he, mentally in terms of his confidence level and his willingness to come and give everything he has to try to make this team something special. He absolutely not only creates pace, he creates offensive opportunities for the rest of their roster. I'm not even worried about him creating offense for KD and Kyrie. They don't really need it that much. Those other guys do. And Ben Simmons is the best playmaker on that roster. If he's right, the other thing, he takes a lot of pressure off of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving defensively with who they have to guard. And over the course of an 82-game season and a playoff run, that is huge. But we have to see him first. On paper, all three guys healthy, there's no question that they belong on that short list of teams that could be playing in the NBA Finals.
I want you guys to think about this. Think about the 86 Mets, right? With those, it was chaos, right? But chaos was almost like their best chance at winning the whole thing. Like that is kind of the version of what's occurring in Brooklyn. Like it's going to seem chaotic, but at the end of the day, if they're able to win a championship, it's worth doing because their pieces would add up ultimately to being one of the best teams in the East.
That's exactly
and the country.
right. Yeah, everything may look crazy, but then a ball rolls through somebody's legs and you never know what might happen. You buying it or not? Are you buying the Nets as a legit contender next year if they figure out a way to put this together?
Oh, I think you have to. And that's the beauty of the conversation here is that why would you walk away from it when you basically gave up so much for the Harden trade? And when you made the signings in 2019, you knew what you were getting yourselves into. Right? Like you knew what comes when you acquire or sign two franchise level players here. And as I said, the alternative is that you go back to becoming a lottery team without these two players on your roster.
Final word. I'm not sure that Kevin Durant is in Brooklyn without Kyrie Irving wanting to be in Brooklyn.
Meaning he wouldn't have gone in the first place, or the day Kyrie leaves, he wants out.
I'll say it again. I'm not sure Kevin Durant is in Brooklyn if Kyrie Irving weren't in Brooklyn.
Understand that. I just want to make sure. Are you talking about in the past or you're talking about going forward?
I'm talking about D, all the above.
Okay, I think that was C, but I'll take it. Okay.
C, fair. Probably C. You know what I'm talking about. Typically D, Legs.
Final word, Legs. Quickly, go.
I was going to say, could you imagine if it plays out the way we just said and the Brooklyn Nets end up in the finals against the Golden State Warriors and it then becomes nicknamed the Bus Driver Finals? The Bus Driver Finals. It's a bus driver drag race, baby. That's what we got at that point. I can't wait.
That's exactly right. For the older viewers, you'll know this reference that becomes the Ralph Cramden Finals, the Ralph Cramden Invitational. He was a very famous bus driver. Meantime, I got one other team I want to ask about very quickly. We had an interesting discussion an hour ago about what if the Lakers' big three of LeBron James, Russell Westbrook, and Anthony Davis are all healthy. Tim Legler said he would see that as a contending team in the Western Conference, depending on what they put around him. Bobby and I are skeptical. Jay, how about you?
I'm skeptical. I am curious to see how Darvin Ham comes in and creates some new dynamics on this team offensively. I mean, they were one of the worst defensive teams last year as opposed to a couple years ago. They were top two. So I think there are a lot of changes. The ancillary pieces around LeBron, AD, and Russ, I think are imperative. But look, I'm never going to be the person to sit up on national TV and tell you that I'm going to ever expect LeBron James to do anything other than be worldly. I mean, the guy was in the MVP conversation. You do think if you're able to add AD with the faster pace with Russ, that they will be in the conversation. But I still need to see what ancillary pieces you put around them.
Bobby, what can they start doing here? The draft is tomorrow. They don't have a pick. The offseason begins after that. What?
Bargain shopping and being creative. I mean, you've got 7 roster spots, the veteran minimum exception, the tax mid-level. I think you're going to lose Malik Monk, who basically outplayed his contract here. So what happens with those 7 or 8 roster spots is going to determine, I think, how far this team can go next year.
Give me a final word on it, Timmy Legs.
Listen, I just don't think. I think anybody that would write off a healthy LeBron James and Anthony Davis, you do it at your own peril, because you just can't deny they're 2 of the most complete players in the NBA. Now, listen, having said that, I don't expect them to be healthy. I just don't think the track record in recent memory dictates that we should buy into that. But the narrative is, what if? That's the whole point of the question. And I say, what if those guys are healthy and they find a better role for Russell Westbrook? And I think that could mean coming off the bench. I'm a big believer in Darvin Ham, having been a former teammate of his, and just seeing his intensity, his communication skills, and what he has already said he's going to try to do. I just believe that if you have those 2 guys out there for a full season, they check off so many boxes on both ends of the floor. I'm not willing to go in and write them off if they're healthy.
That's fair. Look, I have no idea how good they will be, but the one thing I think we can rest assured of is they will be interesting one way or the other.